All right, we are recording. Welcome everybody to our third installment of this series of continuing education. I'm Carrie Williams. I'll be your co-presenter along with Ann Reed, and I'm going to let her introduce herself in just a second. I think that most of you know me because you have done the series and or you've graduated the program with us. So human trafficking is something that really was not on my radar until Ann did this presentation for a continuing ed medical assisting program. Gosh, Ann, I think it's been 4 years. And it really kind of put me in this rabbit hole. And I'm in it again with doing research to update this information. And it's really disturbingly interesting. So some of this information that we're going to present today is a little bit disturbing. It might, I don't know, we're in medicine, so I don't know if anything will shock you, but some of this stuff is just, it's just wrong. It's hard for us to fathom that people do this to other people, especially children. So it was really interesting for me to update the presentation. And Ann, I'll go ahead and let you introduce yourself.
Yes, good morning. My name is Ann Reed. I know some of you either from the previous presentation or CPR classes there at Front Range. I come from primarily an EMS fire background since about 2000. And recently, I've been working a little bit more in the public information arena in that fire and EMS area. A few years ago, like Carrie was saying, I can't believe it's been 4 years, but Carrie and I had collaborated on this topic that we both feel passionate about and started diving into, like you're talking about, that rabbit hole of information, the dark rabbit hole that it is. But bringing that to the forefront and going, yes, this is a dark place. How can we help others that are out there, yourselves, to help recognize folks being trafficked, whatever. But Carrie has taken this presentation to a whole new level, and I feel super honored to be a little piece of this, but I'm glad you guys all are dialed in and hopefully comfy and have some tissues if you need it. But it is a dark topic. It's, if you know me, I'm fairly lighthearted, but it's something I feel passionate about.
Yes, it's extremely dark, and some of these videos that I watched were very emotional. So I try not to plug in too many videos because then it's just me playing a bunch of videos for you. But at the end, I will share all of the resources that Ann and I have found to be reliable. And I also included some reading. I mean, there are some amazing books that are nonfiction, sadly. And I found those also to be extremely helpful and eye-opening, just to hear people's stories. All right. Oop, too fast. Well, the first thing there is objectives. Sorry, my video, again, so many computer screens set up. So our first slide here is just talking about the objectives, and I wanted to give you the number. So this is approved by the AAMA for continuing education credits for medical assisting, and you do get all of the items that you need. So you'll get credits for administrative, for clinical, and for general. So we're going to talk about the various types of human trafficking, methods in which people are recruited, common myths about trafficking, as medical professionals, how to recognize signs that someone is being trafficked and how to safely communicate with them, the overall health effects of trafficking, how to report suspicions, And again, there's my little warning that some of these things are just a little bit graphic and disturbing. Right. Sorry. There's always got to be a little bit of tech problems, right? At the beginning, hopefully that's it.
Like you're steering a giant airplane.
All right, so human trafficking is defined as a group of crimes that involves the exploitation of men, women, and children. And it's primarily for financial gain. And we're going to talk about how the numbers have soared. I mean, again, changing the presentation from 4 years ago to today, the numbers are just unbelievable. Human trafficking is now the #1 largest international crime. It has surpassed drug and gun trafficking. Now, while human trafficking and gun trafficking profits are the same at $150 billion annually, drug trafficking still outnumbers that by about half. So it's 300 billion per year for drug trafficking. But human trafficking, we'll see, is just, it's exploding. It's just so easy. And there's little risk of getting caught or being penalized. So it's really easy for traffickers to kind of to target vulnerable populations. Also, that last statement, and I've seen a couple of different numbers on various websites, but between 1 and 2 million children are trafficked every year. Now, a lot of the information that I got was from the Global Organized Crime Index report of 2021. So this is really new information. You know, it takes a lot of time to compile statistics. So sometimes we might only have access to numbers that are what we would consider 2 or 3 years old. But this is from 2021. It's human trafficking is primarily fueled by demand, right? It's the supply and demand, the demand for prostitution, the demand for illicit sex, especially with minors. It spans the globe, and something that makes it easy to access is the internet. There is a very intricate and sophisticated cyber network that makes this extremely easy. It's very difficult to expose, and I think that our numbers, when we look at the statistics, might actually be low because it's really hard to identify sometimes. So it's hard to expose and very hard to disrupt. And Anne, you can jump in anytime. Anne and I are going to kind of banter back and forth as far as delivering information.
Okay, thanks. Try to keep up on the presentation and, like you're saying, switching between those screens.
So human trafficking is when people are transported by force or deception and become enslaved. It is modern day slavery, and traffickers use a lot of different tactics in order to recruit, to transport, transfer, harbor, and receive people. And it's usually by means of threats, by use of force, coercion, abduction, fraud, deception, abuse of power or position, especially when it comes to deceiving minors, gaining that person's trust. And you might think that, oh, most children who are trafficked are kidnapped. No, they are coerced by somebody that they know, somebody that they trust. And all of this is for the purpose of exploitation. A lot of exploitation includes labor, and we'll see that technically, I mean, I was really focused on the sex trade, but forced labor is actually the largest type of trafficking. It doesn't necessarily generate the most profit, but traffickers or individuals who use trafficked people for forced labor are saving a lot of money, right? So if a cook normally makes $3,000 a month, if they're in a trafficked situation, they might only get paid $50 a month. So individuals who are using people who are trapped in this slavery are not paying them what they're supposed to. So they save a lot of money. So it doesn't necessarily look like it's generating a lot of profits like prostitution is. And this image just shows you kind of how the different types of trafficking is all over the world, right? So prostitution, forced labor, and debt bondage. So debt bondage is very similar to or a part of forced labor, involuntary servitude.
And you can look, you can, sorry to interrupt. You can imagine, you look at some of those trades and you're going, well, how do they get those numbers? You know, those numbers are higher than what's reporting, right? So it's very under the table kind of areas. You know, it had cocaine trafficking or whatever. Those numbers are probably a little low. So just realizing like the volume that is underreported. Sorry, Carrie, go ahead.
Exactly. That's a big thing to keep in mind. These numbers seem outrageous. And a lot of people don't think this is not happening in the United States, but it is a huge business in the US, huge. And we're actually going to look at the next slide, which I use this website a lot. This is from the Organized Crime Index. So this is a document, it's about 200 pages, the Global Organized Crime Index of 2021. It's the global initiative against transnational organized crime. And basically what they did to kind of get all of this information and compile it is they were comparing across these 10 criminal markets. They were looking at how much a company or a country is susceptible to organized crime, and then the things that they have in place to combat it. So these are the top 10 organized crime markets. So as you can see, human trafficking is number one. Then it's the cannabis trade. Now you would think, wait a minute, why is this considered organized crime and why is it so huge? And even though a lot of countries, not very many, honestly, a lot of countries have legalized it, regulated recreational and medicinal use of cannabis since 2018, there's still a huge black market to some degree, and it's still classified as an illicit narcotic. And the reason that things, or the reason that there's such a drive for the cannabis market is because it's super easy to grow. It's so easy when you compare it to synthetic drugs. Cocaine is on there and heroin. Those are extremely hard to manufacture. And you can grow pot in your backyard. So the cannabis trade or the black market for cannabis is so pervasive. So arms trafficking, you see there, human smuggling, and there's a lot of overlap between human trafficking and human smuggling. And a lot of people think, oh, those are the same thing. Why aren't they combined? Human smuggling is a little different. That's just transporting people, not necessarily buying and selling people. It's transporting them across a state line or transporting them across a border.
What?
Fauna and flora crimes. So this is trafficking of exotic animals, birds, fish, poaching, illegal stripping of lumber, usually, or other forest products. And the non-renewable resources, that is like illicit extraction, mining, smuggling of natural resources like oil or natural gas, coal, gold, gemstones, and diamonds are a huge commodity, non-renewable resource. So that kind of rounds out the top 10. Now, the top countries for non-renewable resources crimes are Turkey, Venezuela, Iran, and Peru. The top countries for human trafficking, Asia. Now, just think about what I said about, we all think that, oh, it's sex trafficking is number one. It's not, it's labor. So just think about all of the things, if I look at this, oh yeah, sure enough, made in China. we're so demanding, right? If we think about all of the demand for things from Amazon, super cheap. I'm going to buy it from Amazon because I can get it cheaply. That kind of trickles down to put pressure on that manufacturing person, like the bottom rung of the organization manufacturing things. I got to make this super cheap, so I'm not going to pay my labor force. And there's billions of people in China that are forced into doing labor for any pay. So number one for human trafficking is Asia. Second is Africa. And third is the Americas, primarily Central America, then South, then North. So the United States is in the top three. Now, this is a great slide. It's kind of comparing what we think of as slavery, right? We think of Africans who were stolen from Africa and brought over on ships and forced to work in cotton fields and to be servants. And now at the modern day slavery, I mean, this is just one example, child soldiers. And we'll talk about all the different types of forced labor, but this is just one of them. And if you think about all of the individuals who were brought here, 6 million slaves were brought from Africa in the 1800s. So 6 million. Currently, again, this is the number that just blew me away as far as updating. In the last presentation 4 years ago, the number that we had there was about 25 million people were enslaved, and now it's almost 41 million.
Oh my gosh.
It's crazy. And again, we're thinking that this is an underpublished number, that this is not accurate. So you can see there that 25 million people are in forced labor, 15 million are forced into marriage. This is commonly minors, young girls, and parents will literally sell their child for as little as $3,000 to try to get out of debt. So selling their children. 71% of those that are trapped in human trafficking are women and girls. So 29% are men and boys. And, you know, they were a couple of sites were really struggling to maybe publish some numbers that included transgender folks. And that is definitely a vulnerable group. So I think that in the future, because we are now looking at that and thinking about that there will be more statistics on individuals that are transgender that are being trafficked. And the number of for children also has kind of, you know, it's gone up and then down and then it's soared again. So we're back up to 34% of the individuals being trafficked are children.
Yeah, almost 3/4 of the population are children that are trafficked. And whoever else is on, if you can mute your audio, not Carrie, please.
I'm happy to mute.
No, that's why I put this specify.
So some average numbers, and I have some examples too of forced labor, but the average age at which a teen enters the sex trade in the United States is 12 to 14 years old. And I tried to imagine, wow, what was my mindset as a 12-year-old, as a 13-year-old? I don't even think I knew what sex was, honestly. Many of the victims of the sex trade are runaway girls. And so that's an easy target. Especially on the internet, when you see posts like, I hate my parents, or I'm so over school. Another very interesting statistic that law enforcement posted was that a large number of child sex trafficking survivors in the United States were at one time in the foster care system where they had already been sexually abused.
Right, so you're looking at those vulnerable populations. If you have raised teenagers, I've raised 2 teenage girls, and at that 13, 14, and I was there as well, you get really sassy and you want to rebel against your parents, whether you're from a foster care or a good home. Those hormones take over and leaving those children vulnerable and more likely to be picked up into these trades that are not savory there. Sorry, just had to throw that in there. I just know when I had 15-year-olds, both of them, you're just like, I want to drop them off at a firehouse, no questions asked, but it's making those young children, boys and girls, vulnerable.
Exactly. So I just have a couple of little stories as far as examples that I found on the Ransomed Life website. That's also a really good resource. So a story about forced labor. A family might give up a child for adoption in Nepal. So this example was in Nepal because they can't afford to take care of him. He in turn is sold to a sweatshop owner who forces the child to learn how to sew garments without pay for hours every day, and he does not get to leave or go to school. An example of sex trafficking, 2 women from Korea were bought and sold and brought into the San Francisco area. They were told that they were going to get jobs as hostesses or waitresses in the fabulous San Francisco restaurant life. But when they arrived, they're held captive and they're forced into prostitution while their captor controls all of the money that they receive. And they were selling themselves for as little as $20 a session. Debt bondage, so this one's really common, right? You're in debt to the trafficker. So and you never seem to pay off your debt. There's always something that gets added or lumped on top of that. And when a person is convinced to come to another country, let's say the United States, their travel visa and their passports are typically taken from them. So they have no way of accurately identifying themselves. They typically don't speak the language. So just imagine the fear. Like if I was trapped in Africa and did not speak the language and did not know who to trust and was forced to do certain things and didn't know how to get help. And there's typically a fear of the police, right? The traffickers tend to kind of reinforce that fear of you're going to get caught, you're going to get arrested, you're going to get deported. Or there's often a threat that I'm not going to kill you, I'm going to kill your family. Now this slide just shows how easy it is, right? The act, the means, the purpose. This is what adds up to human trafficking, right? So the act is recruiting, so actively transporting, transferring, harboring, or receiving persons. And recruitment is so easy. I think about now the areas of conflict. There is probably some human trafficking vultures right now in the Ukraine because it's an easy target group. The means, threat or use of force, coercion, abduction. I mean, there are stories where children are abducted, and I do have some videos of near misses as far as abduction. Fraud, deception, abuse of power or vulnerability. Again, really common for young women, young people in general, but in particular, young women. And giving payments or benefits, and something that we'll see in the discussion on sex trafficking is that a lot of times it's the what we call boyfriending or the Romeo way of convincing somebody to do something for you because you have a bond with this person, right? I think this is my boyfriend and I'm going to contribute to the relationship by having sex with this stranger because my boyfriend needs money, or I'm helping my boyfriend by doing this. And there's the purpose. I mean, exploitation, forced labor, sexual exploitation, removal of organs, you know, that's kind of not really talked about anymore. But we'll definitely spend some time on the organ traffic.
So that's a good slide. We didn't have that one last time, but it has good breakdown of what constitutes human trafficking. It's not just your prostitution, it's that transport of that human to another location and making it challenging for them to get back. So that's a good slide. I like that one. Do you want me to put some of the links in the chat area, some of those websites, or we could do that later? What would you like?
Yeah, that would be great. This is also a great slide. Again, it kind of shows you the global impact of human trafficking. So the main form of exploitation detected in the United States is sexual exploitation, Central America, South America. So like I said, the Americas. If you look at all the little blue indicators, that's forced labor.
I like the realization, you know, where they put in the North American area, the purple shape on the top there, showing kind of near Canada. It jogged my memory as far as the Indigenous women in Canada that are exploited quite frequently is quite a deal up in Canada. So it's appropriate they put it up in that area to jog my memory. But sorry about that, Carrie. Go ahead.
No, that's a great point. Again, that's a really easy population to target because there isn't education and it's very easy to fall prey to false promises. Now, remember when I said that the rates for child trafficking has gone up and down, and in 2004, the rate at which children were being trafficked was about 13%. And this substantially grew in 2011 to 34%. It kind of dipped a little bit to 28% in 2014, but now we're back up to 34% and rising. And as far as putting a price on a human being, I mean, that was, again, really hard for me to kind of imagine that somebody could sell their child for $3,000 and not really know maybe what they're getting, what their child is going to be subjected to. So this was an analysis of court documents that reported monetary exchanges. In most of those cases, in 26 out of 30 of those cases, women and girls were sold to their future exploiter. I don't want to say employer, but exploiter for less than $5,000. In another document, 8 women were sold for $1,000. In this one case in Belgium, a criminal group paid $2,800 for each woman that they recruited, and those victims had to pay off their debt. The network trafficked about 50 victims in 2 years, and that resulted in roughly about $500,000 for the traffickers. So each woman that they trafficked for sex in Belgium made $100,000 annually for them, while they were getting paid. I mean, they were getting taken care of, right? They're being fed and housed, and that's part of their benefits, I guess. But they're not being paid for this. They're not receiving any financial gain. So $100,000 per sex slave. Now, I do also love this slide, the causes of trafficking. Why is it so proliferative? And it's high reward, low risk. So for the traffickers, who are the main cause of this, there's very little risk for them of getting caught and prosecuted and punished. Now, there are more cases. Yes, we're working on this, but it's a slow start. It really is. I mean, if I think about, again, what we saw 4 years ago and what we're seeing now, it's still quite dismal as far as prosecutions.
And I don't know if we're going to cover with COVID coming in and pushing more of that trafficking on more online, still being trafficked, right? Still the boyfriend syndrome. Oh, I'm going to do this for him so we can make money. So that trafficking has been moved to more of an online venue as well as the regular in-person. I'm using the wrong words. Sorry about that. But that high demand, right? So you're pushing that demand is more online, and the accessibility, making those women more accessible by tracking them online, finding out where they're at so they can pick them up.
Exactly. And looking for those keywords, right? Especially with teenage girls, just like you said, Anne, you go through that time period in your life where you are maybe rebelling. Traffickers are they're scavenging the internet looking for those keywords. So the other thing that drives this is systemic inequities and disparities, right? We have people that are living in extreme poverty and they're just looking for any possible way to get out. And, somebody sells them a dream. It's really easy to fall for. So mass displacements, again, I'm thinking of the Ukraine, areas of conflict, extreme poverty, lack of access to education and job opportunities, places where violence is a social norm, places that child marriages that's considered normal. All of these factors push individuals into situations where traffickers can take advantage.
Found some cases in orphanages in Haiti that were trafficking those that were entrusted to the orphanage, which is a sad way to take advantage of those that are in a difficult position already. So
right, they already feel unloved and unwanted. I was reading something last night. Again, I just couldn't stop myself, but it was about the children in India, and there are so many children that are living on the streets in India, and it's just really easy to snatch them up. And so this just kind of highlights that, right? The people that are vulnerable, right? Runaways, those in foster care, people that are already victims, or drug. We haven't really talked about drug addiction and alcohol addiction, but a lot of times once a person is in a situation where they're trafficked, a predator might get that person addicted to something, and then they need to stay with them because that's how I get my drugs, is from my boyfriend or from my pimp, right? So it's really difficult for them to get out in that situation as well. So this is a nice list of all of the potential opportunities for human sales, right? Forced labor is just that, right? We're doing a job and we're not getting paid. We're being forced to do it because if I don't, I'm going to be abused. I'm going to be beat up. I might even be killed if I don't do this, or there's a threat that my family might be killed. Bonded labor or debt bondage again, this is where I've been recruited, and now I have amassed this debt to get to the destination country, and I have to work off my debt. And sometimes this, you accumulate interest. It's just like a credit card debt, right? You accumulate, and you will never pay off that debt. And sometimes the debt will go from generation to generation, where now the children have to pay off mom and dad's debt while they're also assuming their own. So families might never, or generations might never pay off their debt. Involuntary servitude. So this is where we're, it's just like having a maid, or a lot of hotel chains use individuals for this kind of service, laundry services, or individual households, which also makes it extremely difficult to find those people and help them, because they're sometimes remanded to the house. They never get to leave the property. So it's really difficult to find those people who are enslaved in a private household. Forced child labor. This one's really, it's sometimes a little bit hard to talk about, because this often involves sex. And it just blows me away that there's such tremendous demand for this. What is wrong with people? I cannot believe that we do this to each other.
I met a SANE nurse recently, SANE nurse from Denver, who had two girls, 14 and 15. The girls had been picked up in Denver, taken to Leadville, forced to have sex with the Leadville, I don't know if it's a manager or whatever. And they took them to Leadville because they didn't have a good support system for, law enforcement is not real heavy up in that area.
Right.
Young girl that was working the front desk had realized, like, these two young girls have been here for a while and hanging around with this older person that's not their dad, obviously, and reported it. And those girls were brought into Summit Medical for exam but 14 and 15-year-old girls that were transported for sexual favors. It just, like you said, just blows me away, having raised kids and being a kid myself, and realizing like where your thoughts are at 14 and 15, but being forced into that, what you're saying, that child labor. Then we have
and again, that's a really great example, and because it's in Colorado. We're going to see a slide where, I mean, there's some serious hot spots in Colorado.
Right. So how do we recognize that is what we'll get to eventually. But yeah, just the different ways of taking advantage of another human being it's a long list.
I know.
And the child soldiers, we barely touched on that last time, I remember. But recruiting kids to do infiltrate the other side and teaching them to kill at a young age. That's fun to see too.
Seeing these kids with these gigantic guns that are much bigger than them.
Right.
But UNICEF estimates that there are about 300,000 or more children under the age of 18 that are being exploited in about 30 different armed conflicts worldwide. So the vast majority of child soldiers are around 15 and 18, but there are kids as young as 7 and 8.
Right.
Learning how to kill.
And I'm not against it. I would just do a side note. I am not against kids learning to hunt and be safe with guns and such like that. That's not what we're going with. That it is using these children in a way that is, well, I lost my screen. That's nefarious. Yeah, it's not the going out hunting with dad and uncles on the weekend kind of thing. Sorry, I just digress.
There's a movie called, gosh, it was about a preacher who went to Africa.
Mhm.
Machine Gun Preacher. It's with Gerard Butler. I mean, it's got a big star in it. And it was an amazing story. And it was about, I mean, it kind of highlighted this, where these villages, tiny villages in Africa were raided by these paramilitary organizations. And some of these children were forced to, like this one in the movie, that this child was forced to kill his parents. He either died or he killed his parents. And, you know, his mom was like, it's okay, just do it. And he had to kill his mom. And they trained these kids to be snipers. So they sent them out, right? They're safe at a safe distance from the actual, you know, attack. And all these kids are at the front lines.
Yep.
Machine Gun Preacher. We'll talk more about the sexual exploitation of children. Organ, you know, child tourism. I just want to touch on that for just a little bit. So child sex tourism is another thing also to kind of put on your, you know, your list of things to check out, or just think about this, that a lot of people will travel to another country. It's the same with organs, right? There's organ trafficking or organ tourism, where you travel to another country. I can't get a kidney in the United States, so I'm going to travel to Israel and get a kidney. It's the same with child sex tourism. And I travel to another country where I have easy access to an 8-year-old. I don't know. On some websites, you can choose the age of the child. Ugh, it just kind of makes my stomach turn.
Yeah, and those organ transplants, like you touched on, it's oftentimes, like you were saying, you're not able to, you're on this long wait list to get an organ transplant, when you can go and purchase one, you know. Oh, you have that slide. I'm sorry, I'm jumping ahead. But where you're to purchase organs from somebody who you have 2 kidneys, right? Whatever, this farmer who's trying to put food on the table is going to volunteers to sell his kidney for a certain amount. And then that trafficker in between is going to make that big profit from they're selling it to. So yeah, no loss for them. Farmer loses his kidney. Yeah, that's an interesting one that I dove into that quite a bit a few years ago, and that's an interesting trade.
Yeah, I found a really great video, and we'll get to that when we get to organ trafficking. I found a really great video that kind of highlights that, you know, the person selling or losing their kidney, it might only get a couple $1,000s. The person getting the kidney is paying $500,000, and the people in the middle, the brokers, are getting the rest.
Right.
Something on child sex tourism, CST is the abbreviation. All these things have acronyms and abbreviations. So there are some cases of child sex tourism in the United States, and I just want to kind of highlight who's involved in this. So in the court documents, there was a pediatrician. Can you imagine that? A retired Army sergeant, a dentist, and a university professor. So this is not just deviance. It is your neighbor, potentially, right? It's there. And I do have a slide that shows the typical person who purchases.
Yeah, that is scary. You're right. Somebody posted in the chat.
So this just shows the cost of human trafficking, or the profiting. So like I said, labor trafficking, forced labor, is the #1. That's the most people involved. However, the most profitable is the sexual exploitation of individuals. So of the $150 billion that this generates annually, 99 billion is from sex.
Oh yeah, that's a good slide.
All right, so why don't we talk really quickly about the biggest market, and then we'll take a little break.
Okay.
So forced labor. Same methods of recruitment, right? Coercion, false promises, deception about the nature of the work. The big one is confiscation of travel documents, right? You're in a foreign country and you have no documentation. You don't have a travel visa. You don't have your passport. You have no identification. Sometimes these individuals have no idea what day it is. They don't know what month it is. They had no concept of the date. And we'll talk about that when we get to screening or identifying individuals. These individuals are often forced to do overtime. There's limited freedom. Sometimes they're confined to a building or confined to a facility. They tend to live in substandard conditions. There's withholding of wages, denunciation to authorities, right? There's always that risk, right? I want to be, some of these people, I want to be in the United States. I do not want to be deported. However, they're living in this kind of situation. It's sometimes for a lot of people, coming to America is not the dream that they thought it would be.
Yeah, this is showing more of that, what we used to call sweatshop type of work, where they've been brought over to do a task that they're getting paid nothing for,
Right.
other than maybe house and food.
Right. This is what keeps our on our end of the purchasing power. That's what keeps the prices so low. Or when you want to buy something cheap from China, there you go. This is how the price stays so low. It really reminds me, because I've probably read at least 100 books on World War II and the Holocaust, and it really reminds me, there's a lot of similarities in the forced labor population of the Jews that were, they weren't even fed, right? They were starved to death to kind of keep the German war machine going. So this is not that dissimilar.
I'm concerned about the fallout from our recent war. How's that gonna fall out for the Ukrainian folks that have to migrate out of Ukraine, the ones that could, how those folks may be preyed upon as well. Just looking at local and the war that we have going on currently.
Exactly. It definitely is a situation, and that traffickers are just converging on that spot right now to take advantage.
Yeah. Yep. This is a really long list of goods that are various countries and sectors for the child labor, forced labor, that it shows. This list is a multi-page document. I believe we just pulled a couple items out of there to cover it for the forced labor. Two topics that are important in my life are fishing and coffee, are the two that we cover in this. But looking at those countries that are on that list, quite a lengthy list for using child labor to harvest or manufacture, process coffee. So having those items be humanely processed is something that I try to be cognizant of when I'm purchasing. Just some of the, grassroots, what we can do. Like, this is a terrible thing happening around the world. How can I, as Ann Reed, address these atrocities? So, yeah, this is just showing that coffee, which is very dear to me, making sure that they're taking care of their people that are picking it, processing it. Also for fishing, the fishing trade, taking advantage of kids and adults as well, where they are in poor conditions, where they're not, you know, we all love camping out, but to live like that would be a horrible way to continue to live. So making sure that those products are humanely processed again. What else did I have on this particular trade? But just a long list. You look at those industries, what countries are bringing goods to us to purchase for lower cost, because we're all about that. Where was I going with that? But as far as making sure that those folks working in those industries are taken care of humanely.
I mean, this kid, look, this kid can't even hold this, whatever this is. This pickaxe.
Yep, a sickle.
Goodness. Oh, okay. I was like, where are all my videos? All right, so here's our first video. First of all, can y'all hear that?
A little bit, yes.
I am a labor trafficking survivor. I came as a religious visa. So I was there for the leader. I was not given a salary. I was told to take care of their grandchildren. I was with them 24 hours. So I was sleeping in the same room with the children. I got out from this situation in 2003. And then I was scared to be undocumented. When I came to Tamayan, they treated you as a warm family.
Damayan is an organization of Filipino migrant workers. The people that we serve work as nannies, elderly caregivers, house cleaners, personal assistants, and other work in private households. Ito ho, mga karapatan ng mga domestic workers in New York. We're really looking to reach workers who maybe have experienced trafficking or who are in the best position to meet trafficked workers. Labor trafficking is when one person holds or obtains another person in coerced or forced labor. It's the individual employer or trafficker who's forcing, coercing, manipulating a worker. So the indicators that we see are usually of threats, passport and other identification theft. It's usually restricted movement, restricted communication.
For a case of trafficking, what we're usually going to be looking for are signs that the workers don't have freedom to move about. They aren't getting paid for the work that they're performing. Maybe they don't have identifying documents. They're being made to live in substandard living conditions. They may be skilled or unskilled laborers, young or old, male or female.
I never heard them complain. You know, it didn't cross my mind that they were being abused.
When you'd ask the boys, how's it going? Then none of them ever said, well, this happened to me or this happened to me or whatever.
We had a case and it involved the parent exploitation of American workers, and they were adults with intellectual disabilities. They were transported from Texas to a turkey processing plant in Iowa. For approximately 35 years, these adults were working for a company for at least 40 hours per week, but only being paid $65 a month.
Crazy.
They were hidden away from much of the world. These men were punished in cruel ways. And so after 35 or 40 years of blood, sweat, and tears, when these men were finally rescued, they had nothing to show for it. What we find in a case like that, even involving people with intellectual disabilities, is that the things that make them vulnerable are the very same things that you might see in a case involving foreign workers.
The same type of force and coercion that a shackle would be is the same kind of mental anguish they're going through with some of the things that a trafficker might threaten them with.
In order to build any kind of relationship, you have to go out to them. I'm talking about everything from working with the social service providers, the clinics, the churches, anywhere where labor trafficking victims may go for strength or for help. That's where law enforcement should be reaching out and proving that we're serious about helping.
The Illinois Migrant Legal Assistance Project provides free legal services to migrant and seasonal farm workers. When we do specific outreach, we go to labor camps. Many times they have basic questions like, where is there a church that might have a service in Spanish? And those open up lines of communication where they come to trust us and talk with us. Usually by the second or third time, you'll get a sense of, are there some deeper issues here that are going on?
I think it all starts by being a good listener and letting them know that you are going to try to do whatever you can to help.
I met my trafficker back in my country, the Dominican Republic. They offer us job in the United States, working in hotels. When we came here, what happened is there was not such a job like that. They got a job in DVD manufacturing company. We already invest a lot of money to come, so we had to accept the job, and we did. But he treated us like we were no one. We were living in a one-bedroom apartment, and it was 3 people living there. My paycheck every week was like $39. When we were in that situation, people could see us. We were hardworking in that company. Nobody noticed anything. And then we met Catholic charity person, and we explained her our situation. So she contacted one agent from ICE.
Ronnie had so many concerns. That was the biggest trust barrier to get over, to let him know that I am genuinely concerned for you and your friends and coworkers and for your families.
They made all possible to bring my wife and my 2 kids. I got a job thanks to the people that were out there to help me, but they changed our lives. I mean, they saved us. And I can tell you now, because I'm a survivor, talking about trafficking here.
Something I want to point out on that, I don't know if you recognize, I'm all about words, but they mentioned the word survivor instead of victim. That's something I found that people from the Marshall Fire didn't want to be referred to as victims, but more of survivors. So I just wanted to just kind of be aware of that language. I have used victims in the past, and anyhow, that's just a side note.
And I did try to change all that on the slides, but I don't know if I have that all fixed, but.
You probably did. You're a rock star. You did great on this. This is going into, what was this? The Rainbow Bright.
Yeah, it was this daycare senior center. These 4 were kind of the same thing.
Yep.
They were taking
A
advantage.
deceiving name, Rainbow Bright, for a family-run business accused of dark conditions.
Rainbow Bright was cheating not just their workers of their pay, not just the workers of their dignity, but was cheating you and me as taxpayers.
About $8.5 million, says State Attorney General Javier Becerra. The 4 adult and 2 child care facilities are tucked away in Pacifica, Daly City, and South San Francisco neighborhoods.
They have been here long time, but we never know what happened actually inside.
The sign says, "We just stepped out." But on Thursday, investigators raided the facilities, seizing the weapons seen here. A loaded handgun apparently found under a blanket in the garage of a daycare.
And then we saw a lot of packages were removed, and we will close the place.
Joshua, Noel, Gerlin, and Carlina Gamos currently face 59 criminal charges for human trafficking, rape, and labor exploitation.
They were forced to work up to 24 hours a day. They slept on the floors and in garages. They were locked outside, sometimes in the rain when the owners were not home.
Becerra says the accused confiscated the workers' passports and threatened to call immigration.
I'm shocked. Like, they were arrested for that.
Now the accused are being held on bails ranging from $1 million to $2.5 million. Court dates are set for later this month.
So one of 100,000 stories.
Right, yeah, that should be named Rainbow Dark for sure. That's was, yeah, like you said, one of several stories pointing out it's here in the United States. It's not Taiwan or, it's here in the United States, and recognizing those facilities, being aware of kind of some key things that you're looking for. We'll point that out later. Well, we're moving into, organ theft. I'm sorry, I was jumping ahead. I get all crazy. But some of those things are just right next door, and just being aware of that. Just that's what this is.
Right, and it's really easy to kind of have all these things run together. And that's something that kind of goes, it's a segue to organ theft, because a lot of people will be trafficked to do labor, and then maybe they get hurt, or maybe they get sick, or something happens, and they're like, well, we're not done with you yet. We're going to take your pancreas and your kidneys and your heart and your lungs and your small intestine. I mean, we can even sell your skin. So
yeah,
there's commonly a multi-factor trafficking incident.
Right. If I'm going to be repurposing my body parts, I want to do it on my own terms, right? So that's what we're trying to point out here. Against their will.
Exactly. So because this is so closely related to labor, it all blends together. We'll just get through this and then we'll take a break, and then it's a nice break between the two biggies, right? Labor and sex. So this is the abbreviation or the mnemonic for trafficking persons. Trafficking in persons is a common term or an abbreviation, TIP, trafficking in persons, that you'll see. So this is trafficking in persons for the removal of organs. And like I mentioned before, there's a lot of medical tourism, just like there is for child sex tourism, right? I'm going to go to another country because I can't get what I need here. I'm going to travel. I'm anonymous. I'm whatever, and I can get it really or relatively inexpensively. So a lot of people will travel to another country to get an organ quickly. It's just, boy, for me, it would be really hard to trust the medical facilities, or is this a match for me, or is my body going to reject it? There's a lot that you have to think about when you're receiving an organ from another person. Now, adults are typically targeted for organ removal because organs are mature, and children are typically targeted for blood. You can actually get quite a bit of money for blood. Next, up there.
There it is. Yeah, so this slide, once again, pointing out the price tags on your organs across the country. Trying to find a key one right now. any questions on this. I mean, you guys feel free to put stuff in the chat as well. We're just sharing this information best we can. But yeah, just being able to buy, like you were talking about, those various body parts at a big price for the end consumer, big profit for that trafficker, low tiny price for the poor soul that is giving these items up, if they live, right? So you're thinking about them going through that procedure. Yeah, like it's tough going through those procedures when you have great medical hospital care. And I'm sure these people are not getting that quality care like you are going to get at a hospital.
Right.
So recovering from that, you know, if they do, often ends with that end of life, right?
Just look at these scars on these guys, and they've all sold their kidneys.
Yeah.
Or they've all been taken. So the kidney, according to the World Health Organization, the kidney is the hot organ, right? It's the one that a lot of people need. And I'm going to show a video, and it's because there's a lot of kidney failure now. You know, diabetes in the West is really driving this market for kidneys. And you know, you can live with one kidney.
But once again, if you're doing that procedure in unclean environment, maybe not the best care that you're given post kidney removal, what are your chances of survival as well?
Exactly.
So those are some of the things that the black market is not taking you to the finest facilities to have these things taken out.
All right, so we'll watch this video and then we'll take a break.
Thank you.
The world is desperate for organs. If you need a new kidney in the US, you only have a 1 in 3 chance of acquiring it by legal means. People are prepared to pay a lot of money to save their own or loved one's life. So an international black market of organ procurement, trafficking, and surgery exists. There's a huge demand, a major supply problem, and you're just a wet sack of commodities. It's illegal to sell human organs in most of the world. Nearly every country runs on a donation system. You sign up to become a donor, and in the unlikely event that you die in a healthy, clean, salvageable way, your organs can be transplanted into others. One person could potentially save 8 lives and improve up to 50. But there aren't enough donors to meet demand. Half of all people will die on the waiting list. This desperation drives people to the black market, an international industry that exists to supply wealthy patients with new organs, no questions asked. The black market accounts for 10% of all global transplants. However unsavory, the sale of human body parts is big business. Lungs and livers are as susceptible to market forces as coffee and cocaine. The new kidney on the black market will cost you $100,000 to $200,000. This is significantly cheaper than a legal operation, but price will still depend on the location of the transplant and nationality of the donor. Well, vendor. The word donor implies consent. The new heart will cost around $120,000, but be prepared to pay 3 times that for the transplant. The new pancreas, $125,000. The liver is special. You only need to transplant part of the liver and it will regrow. So depending on how much you want, it will cost you between $10,000 and $150,000. A lung is between $150,000 to $290,000, but most people will need 2, and they have to be the right size. These are the big 5, the life-threatening organs that are difficult to get hold of legally. There are many other body parts for sale, but either the demand is too low or the supply too high for them to be hugely popular on the black market. They are available though. If you want a small intestine, $2,500. Stomach, $500. Scalp, $600. Eyes, $2,000. Skin, $10 per square inch. No tattoos. Blood, $230 per pint in the US. $20 in India. Bone marrow, $23,000 per gram. Right now, gold is $42 a gram. Most body parts have to come from deceased vendors. On the black market, that can mean corrupt hospitals, funeral directors, executed prisoners, and sometimes grave robbers. A partial liver transplant can be via a living donor, as can a single lung in rare cases. But kidneys are the main event. Everyone has 2 and you can survive with just 1. Their widespread availability and the increase of diabetes in the West means the illegal kidney trade is booming. They are by far the most traded organ on the black market. There's 4 basic models of live organ trafficking. A growing trend, and perhaps the least exploitative, is the direct model. Recipients will recruit a vendor themselves via the internet, but this requires a lot of organisation to ensure you're a match, and you'll need contacts with a willing surgeon. Another is by force. This tends to overlap with general human and sex trafficking. Vendors may be lured to a foreign country with the promise of work, only for them to be forced to give up a kidney or more. It's rare that people are killed for organs, but it does happen. China used to force organ donation from prisoners. They would be kept alive until parts of them were needed. In some parts of the world, a creditor, often a landlord, will accept a kidney as debt repayment. This will usually have been the plan from the start, kidney being much more valuable than a few months' rent. But by far the most common method is through a broker. These are people who target areas of extreme poverty, claiming to offer people a way out by selling their kidney. Although technically selling their kidney by choice, they usually have no other option. It may be illegal to buy or sell a kidney, but it's hard to view the recipient or the vendor as criminal. They are usually on opposite sides of the world at the extreme ends of wealth and society, yet united in their desperation. It is the brokers that extort, coerce, and take advantage. As a recipient, you'll pay $200,000, and as a vendor, you'll receive perhaps $4,000. The chain of middlemen and brokers in between will pocket the difference. Like human trafficking or sexual assault, war zones are a major target for organ recruitment. Refugees can have no employment, home, or support network, and only one valuable possession. If you need to raise money to flee the country, selling a kidney may seem like the only option. Since the beginning of their civil war, it's estimated over 20,000 Syrians have sold an organ. It was a similar story after Thailand's 2004 tsunami, Haiti's 2010 earthquake, and pretty much every major conflict or natural disaster of the last 30 years. Selling an organ can generate some quick cash, but the medical risk is high. On the black market, qualifications and hygiene aren't priorities. Brokers will tell vendors that the procedure is perfectly safe, and sometimes doctors will even convince uneducated vendors that their kidney will grow back. Infection, chronic pain, and a damaged remaining kidney are all too common. These complications, along with inability to work afterwards, will often send a vendor further into debt and poverty. So what's the answer? It's a difficult one because organ trafficking is similar but fundamentally different to drugs or human trafficking. It hurts and exploits a lot of vulnerable people, yet the more effective we are at preventing it, the more people die. One option is to legalize organ sales, allow people to sell their organs directly to hospitals and patients. This would remove most of the middlemen and ensure healthy, clean operations. This is what Iran have done since 1988. It effectively eliminated their black market, and the number of people on their waiting list for a kidney today is 0. But the Iranian model is unique to Iran and their laws. They still face issues of corruption and coercion, as well as a problem with kidney tourism. There's no reason it can't work in other countries, but it will depend on the country's healthcare system and the industry's regulation. There's the moral issue to contend with as well. Legalizing organs is not like legalizing drugs. The public is the product, not the customer. You would be incentivizing people to cause bodily harm to themselves. This means the most vulnerable in our society would still be at risk. Someone will always be willing to sell their kidney a little cheaper than the last person. People in desperate need will still sell their organs for less than their worth. The exploitation is now just state-sponsored. To put it bluntly, the government would be harvesting organs from the poor. Should organ sales be legal? I personally err on the side of no. But there's no reason that under the right legal system, in the right country, with the right healthcare, that it couldn't save a lot of lives. Yet at the end of the day, you're still taking health from somebody and giving it to another in exchange for money. There is no morally convenient solution. And no matter which system, the flow of organs is only ever in one direction, from poor to rich. The only way to truly solve the organ problem is to meet demand. We have to massively increase the legal supply of organs. And in most countries, for now, that means many more people becoming donors. Becoming a living donor to a stranger is an unbelievably kind act, and it will always be rare. But nearly everybody could become a deceased donor. These are the current donor rates for the EU and US. There's a lot of room for improvement. Countries changing to an opt-out donor system will help, but not all that much, because no matter the system, no matter the donor's wishes, the decision, right or wrong, nearly always comes down to the next of kin. To learn about your country's donation system and how to become a donor, visit humaninterest.co.uk/organs. But most importantly, tell your family and friends that in the event of your death, you want to donate your organs. In a time of immense grief, it could save them having to make a very difficult decision and the lives of 8 people. The world is
Great. So, I mean, that video really summarized it so well. But I did want to tell you the illegal organ trade conservatively generates 840 million to 1.7 billion annually, and that was a 2018 estimate. And this is a slide from your original presentation, and I had to look up this Georgia boy with missing organs. This kid, what's his name? Kendrick Johnson, who was found rolled up in a gym mat, and his organs were gone, and he was stuffed with newspaper.
Right. I think that slide was pointing out there is some false reporting out there, so don't fall into that. But, you know, so kind of looking into some of those situations, like careful what you read. I mean, it's just like anything these days, you know, the fake news. But it's definitely an industry, like you pointed out, behind the scenes. So I believe that's what this is addressing here.
This was interesting because it shows the typical donor is 29, male, annual income $480. The typical recipient is 48, male, $53,000 annual income. So just like the video said, organ donation is going in one direction, from poor to the wealthy. And also look at the donor countries.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Oops, there's one more slide here. Oh, this is also interesting. So this person, I almost said gentleman, but he's not. Levi Rosenbaum was the first man federally convicted of organ trafficking in the United States. And he was brokering the sale of kidneys from Israel to the United States. And he was buying them for around, he was buying, I'm sorry, go ahead, Ann.
No, he was proud of his work. He was super, he thought he was doing a great thing. I'm sorry to interrupt. Yeah, I forgot.
Bragging about it, right? He's the matchmaker.
Yeah.
So he was purchasing them for 10,000 and selling them for over 100,000, making millions of dollars, millions.
Yeah, he just thought he was a neat guy. I forgot how that slide makes me.
Right?
I get all mad.
All right, let's take a break. I'm going to pause the recording. All right, so the last topic that we have to talk about is the sex trafficking, and I think that, to me, this one is the hardest one to talk about. I think it's the most destructive, mentally and physically. So in this slide, I want to highlight who the victim is and who is the buyer. Like I said before, the typical age at which somebody enters prostitution or sex trafficking is under 15 years old, right? 12 or 13 years old. The majority of trafficked victims are between 18 and 24, but the typical age, at least in the United States, is 15, and some are under 12. And between 1 and 2 million individuals who are trafficked are children. So 95% of victims experience physical or sexual violence during their trafficking. 43% are forced into forced sexual exploitation, and 98% of those are women and girls. The buyer, who's buying? 99% of the buyers are males. The amount of information is, again, it's a little bit sketchy. I really searched hard to find out who is this 1%? What kind of women are purchasing others? I couldn't find anything. And maybe that's just something that they have to say, well, it can't be 100%.
Right, it could be, yeah. I mean, there are women that do sell other women as well. I mean, it's not so much what sex they are, to be the trafficker.
Right. Well, and the information about transgender, it's just not there right now.
Right. Right. But just bringing this to light, you know, that's the reason for this talk, is just realizing it's out there, and how huge, you know, what a huge amount of money that is being transferred between people. I'm not saying this right, but it's a big industry out there. I think that's really what you're showing, Carrie, is just the wow factor is what it is to me. It's just that volume of people that are being trafficked, survivors that are being trafficked, and how can we minimize that? How can we be aware of that, recognizing it, but realizing the volume, I think, is key on this.
Exactly. Yeah. High frequency buyers, those are individuals that buy on a weekly or monthly basis, and they are generally individuals that are making over $100,000 a year. So the common denominator in the profile of somebody who purchases sex is that they come from a high income level. And high frequency buyers make up 75% of the sex buying market. So they are repeat customers. Now, the next slide shows how recruiting takes place. So a lot of this information comes from the Department of Homeland Security. They actually do have a particular branch that's focusing on countering human trafficking and forced labor. And so some of this information comes from their report. Again, I was really trying to find reputable resources. And so I have a lot of government sites and internationally recognized statistics. So there's a lot out there. The number one place that predators find victims is social media. And as you can see, 59% of those that are recruited, that comes from Facebook, 13% comes from Instagram, 9% from WeChat, which I have never heard of, and 7% from Snapchat, which I was thinking about. I'm like, Snapchat? I wouldn't have even imagined Snapchat, but it has all those cute filters and they're fun, and a lot of children are on Snapchat, and they have fun with those filters, and it's all about seeking out the vulnerabilities in that population. So it's young people.
And the tracking, and let's go back to that tracking, your ability to turn on and off where you show up on a map is an ability in Snapchat. As a Snapchat user, you are able to turn that on. Like, you can see where I'm at all the time. If you know, maybe if you don't know that, you can toggle that. So that's another vulnerability that leaves you open for being recruited in a malicious way. And I believe Facebook also has some sort of tracking tools on it as well, which gives that vulnerability.
Right. You can see that your potential trafficker is in the town next door or in the same town or in another state. 85% of victims reported developing a close relationship with their trafficker. And I do think that social media and texting and the online presence, it makes it so easy to develop a relationship. I mean, has anybody ever watched that show Catfished? Well, I've only watched it a couple of times because I did not know what it was. But it's people pretending, you can put up any picture that you want, and develop a relationship with this person, but that is not who you are, and that is not what you look like. So it's trickery, it's deception. So back to that, with boyfriending or the Romeo pimp tactic of developing a relationship with the person that is targeted. So they might have to put up a little bit of upfront investment in this person, right? You might have to buy them a few little gifts and kind of manipulate their need for attention and love that maybe they're not getting it at home, or they don't think they're getting it at home. So it's really easy to target individuals with low self-esteem, but putting out that initial investment where you might have to take them on a date or something, or you might have to buy them a few gifts, that is so worth it when eventually this person could potentially make you $100,000 a year.
Right. You have a couple people in the chat that are talking about in Vegas, a bunch of like bathrooms. So that's, what is this? Posters installed to, how to report trafficking. I'm sorry to interrupt on your train of thought on that. But yeah, that catfishing, and the side note you're talking about as far as gifting, right? Luring them in, I'm not getting enough attention, just like you said, Carrie, promises of gifts, or your nails are going to look like this, or you're going to wear these clothes, and in order to do that you need to do these things for me. So getting into that loop of being coerced in as is what you were alluding to on that, just
right. It's a type of grooming.
That's the word. Thank you. Thank you. I have not had enough coffee, apparently.
Your non-child trafficked coffee.
Yes.
Something interesting on the traffickinstitute.org, they posted some information about escort ads, as far as talking about social media, that there are 150,000 new escort ads posted online every day. And mixed into those ads are children who are bought and sold. So it's really hard for law enforcement to, gosh, that's such a needle in a haystack, because they're kind of mixed in 150,000 new ads every day. There is a group called the Guardian Group, or the Pursuit Team, and they kind of help, they're helping manage all of that information and trying to find, trying to find children kind of mixed in with all of these ads, and provide that information to law enforcement. So hopefully they can kind of swoop in and maybe take care of the situation. But in this reporting, individuals who were rescued, 1 in 4 survivors who were advertised online reported that they had more than 10 buyers a day, and some had over 20 buyers a day. So if we put that in perspective, 10 buyers is 10 rapes, right? So you're getting raped 10 times a day. And it's really unimaginable. There is so much physical and mental damage with one rape, but you're getting raped 10 times, maybe 20 times every single day. Can you imagine the amount of information? I mean, it would take so much to help this person recover, if they ever recover. And some people just, and some of the videos that I watch, they just because it is happening every day. They just kind of become numb and totally detached from themselves. You have to take your damaged and violated body with you. You can never get away from the trauma.
And you may have already had that trauma before you were trafficked as well, as far as your childhood. We all look at our own childhoods. So you're bringing that to the table as well. But yeah, those traffickers hope you don't recover from that, right? It's like, yeah.
This is how a lot of them, if they're not already addicted to some type of drug, they will, just to kind of numb the pain, if that's possible. So same type of coercion and deception, and you think this person is your boyfriend, right? So this is how I'm contributing to the relationship, is I need to do this for my boyfriend. I'm doing this for him. He needs me to do this. So you feel like you're contributing.
Human trafficking is one of the forms of trauma that, when you really understand what people are going through and what is being done to them, if you believe in any kind of existential philosophy, I think it is as close to true evil as I have ever seen in my work with people who have been harmed by other people. And I do a lot of work in interpersonal violence.
Every girl is at risk simply because they are a girl. We want all girls educated in the risks about relationships, just like we believe all girls should be educated and have knowledge about human trafficking, so they know what to do. So it's important to have that conversation with girls, not just sweep it under the carpet, never my girl, never her.
There's something unique about the violation of the body. And when I teach about human trafficking, one of the things I talk about is how the body is actually the scene of the crime. So because it is a violation of one's physical person through sexual behavior, there's actually no way to escape it. You can't get away, you can't wash it off, you cannot forget, you cannot get out. You actually take the violated body with you into your new life if you are ever lucky enough to escape human trafficking.
So there's various ways that a girl can be recruited. A lot of ways that we see is what we call boyfriending. So the young girl meets a guy who, she describes as her boyfriend. Guy can build trust, and then he can start to demand things of her. If you loved me, you would do this. And she will 100% believe and describe him as her boyfriend. But in reality, he is pimping her out. And that's probably one of the major ways. And, sometimes they're too afraid to say anything because of judgment from parents and people that are close to them. What would they say?
And so for me, it's such a painful but passionate piece of work. I'm always shocked when I realize how few members of the community actually know that human trafficking is happening underneath their very noses.
So through our strategy, we're looking at prevention through education. So partnerships with the school boards are really important. Letting parents know, letting kids know, teachers, educators, that's huge, starting at the base level. And then intervention through our support network. So support services that are working with more vulnerable youth.
Because for every survivor that we work with, every survivor that we rescue, they will tell us about multiple other survivors that nobody has found, that nobody has saved, that has never been able to reach out for help, and may literally never escape the darkness.
So talking about that education for you that are attending today, as well as other industries, the trafficking, transportation industry is another one that they do a lot of education for trafficking awareness. Airlines, bus drivers, anybody that might be transporting individuals that are being trafficked. So they do a lot more education in those industries as well as the medical industry. Trying to think of some of the other industries that we run across that trafficking needs to be, trafficking awareness needs to be brought up. So we talked briefly in the chat about the bathroom stalls in Vegas. I saw some in Austin as well. Just like, are you being trafficked? It's the only moment of time that you have to be by yourself is to go to the bathroom. Are you being trafficked? Try to hit those little pockets of giving those that are being trafficked a way out.
Yes, just an opportunity. Because sometimes their pimp or their boyfriend or their trafficker is with them all the time. So it's really hard for them to have that moment where they can just ask for help.
Right. Get that information. Yeah, there's a couple other people posting, the places that we've seen it, right? So as we brought up this awareness 4 years ago, it's probably been going on, the awareness going on over these past several years. So as that awareness gets out, how do we address that? How do we reach those that are being trafficked and those that are outside watching like, hey, that looks suspicious. I need to report. Yeah,
exactly. This is just another slide that shows the annual profits from modern slavery. So that 150 billion, I just wanted to show you that those companies that we think of as, wow, that's the biggest company. That's the biggest company. So Exxon, Apple, Samsung, Walmart, HSBC is a clothing, is a retailer, and Toyota. All of those combined, their annual income does not equate to modern slavery. It's just under 150 billion.
Incredible.
Let me see how long this video is. Oh, this one's too long. If we have time, I'll come back and play this one, but this one,
the world of a trafficking victim is constant fear, constant dehumanization, just feeling like you are not even a person anymore. I experienced sex trafficking. I was a single mom.
I'll come back to this one. I just want to make sure we get through all the content because I want you to have those tools as far as recognition and what do I do and the resources. If we have time, I'll come back to this one. But this presentation will also be posted to YouTube, so you could play it again, and I'll send you I found this really great sheet that a medical facility uses for potential trafficking victims, and it was a really nice checklist.
Yeah, bringing that awareness is what we're really, our main goal is. What kind of work environment will you be in that you may have access to someone who is being trafficked? I think that's what we're talking about. I see the slide you're bringing up next, but yeah, it is everywhere. It is throughout the United States.
And so just, thinking, and the story about, some of these individuals being trafficked to Leadville. I mean, look at the I-25 corridor right there. It's red hot. I mean, here's Vegas. Denver is a very similar color to Las Vegas. But Florida is a huge hotbed here. New York and California are the biggies.
And so you're looking at that like, why is it? Why are those areas a hot area? That commerce, that ability to travel, to transport your commodity, that person being trafficked along those interstates, oftentimes sporting events or big events that are happening, a lot of trafficking goes on. So you look at those areas where you have those type of events happening, you're going to have that higher events of trafficking potential as well. National airports, yep.
I do. Sorry, go ahead, Ann.
Go. No, I was just looking at the chat and talking at the same time.
Okay.
Really a bad decision to do both at the same time.
You can multitask. I do have a slide that says that the event that has the highest amount of sex trafficking is the Super Bowl.
Yep. There you go.
So again, this is incidents in Colorado of trafficking. And again, right here, I-25. And on the Polaris website, you can plug in your state and it will tell you, actually that's this one. It will tell you how many cases, how many contacts were made. And so this is Colorado and this is 2020. So this is information for 2020. So that's the most recent information that they can give us. And so, you know, our numbers don't look too high, but it's still, we're out there, we're engaging, we are making contact, we are getting information to individuals. And I do think that probably one of the best places to start is schools, and not just high schools. I think that we need to start in grade school and junior high. This is how Colorado ranks.
Go ahead.
We rank 30th in the country as far as total number of cases.
Yeah, I was just trying to bring up, you're talking to those grade school folks, grade school kids, maybe in the form of, let me see who you're talking to online. Let me see on your phone what apps you have. You know, 'cause kids have phones younger and younger. Being a parent or an aunt or an uncle that is like helping them through this technology that they probably know more than we do at some cases, but monitoring them of what they are putting out there. Talking about students. You know, what's interesting is on the Loveland area being an area that came up on a couple websites I was looking at for being trafficking. Yep, there we go. Being an industry up in that area. I work near Dacono too, or not Dacono, Del Camino, and that also on that I-25 corridor.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
I kind of thought that maybe, you know, college towns. So I thought maybe, and now maybe there are more cases at Greeley, Boulder, Fort Collins because of the college population.
Right.
What is this? Oh, 88% of trafficking survivors interact with medical providers. So also extremely important for us to be able to recognize those signs, 88%. So you probably have seen somebody that falls into this category. Just
Right.
the nature of your job.
Having that spidey sense saying, oh yeah, I went to this Saturday morning human trafficking awareness presentation, and you know, I heard about these folks that are being trafficked, and that brings up an interesting quandary. Like that's a young girl with an older gentleman that doesn't seem to be her dad, and we're going to cover that in this next few slides. But we have that ability to see into a potential trafficking situation, and how do we report that?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you're covering it. Okay, thank you.
Yep. So these are just, you know, some of those indicators that again might cause a little suspicion. So carrying around a lot of keys for hotel rooms, they do seem to be under the control of someone. It's typically an older person, but not always, right? If we're talking about somebody who's being boyfriended, that person might appear to be the same age, but it is typically somebody quite a bit older. Doesn't manage their own finances. They don't have their own identification or travel documents. They lie about their age. They might say that they're 18 or 19 when they're in fact 15. They work excessively. They live in poor, not that we'll be able to necessarily identify these things. Maybe they don't speak or can communicate in English. There is a lot of fear. They might not make eye contact. They'll have some visible scars, burns, lacerations, or bruises, and tattoos. We're gonna see some branding and some tattooing. That will kind of blow your mind as well. And they tend to be, they have a lot of sexually transmitted diseases, maybe not just one STD, but they might have several unwanted or unwanted pregnancies, or they're pregnant often. And they look malnourished.
Right, we're in the medical environment, and so we're going to be seeing those type of medical conditions, potentially. Oh, there, yep. Yeah, so tattooing and branding, what does that mean to you? Right, when I see tattoos, people who get tattoos, it means something to them, right? It is a piece of art. It means something to them, right? My daughters have some beautiful artwork, whatever, of their tattoos. But if you ask somebody that has a tattoo, like, tell me about that, and they're like, oh, well, maybe doesn't have any meaning to them because they were tattooed against their will. That is often what the tattooing and branding we're talking about, that sign of ownership. Oh, that time I tried to leave my trafficker, and I was beat up and tattooed to say, I am in charge of you. I will show you. I will tattoo or brand you to show that ownership. They may not be able to answer where they got their tattoo. Does that make sense? Is that what I'm saying? Makes sense is where it doesn't have meaning. It's not something they purposefully. It means when my grandpa passed away, or my mom always loved this flower.
Yeah, that's my spirit animal.
Yeah, good one. Right. So those kind of things, if you do get a moment of time to talk to somebody that you believe is being trafficked, like, oh, just in casual conversation. I always ask about people's tattoos because I think they're cool. But if they have kind of a rough time describing where that tattoo came from, kind of gives me an alert.
Some of the information that I found was from a couple of dental offices, because they are also they can be healthcare facilities that might be able to identify individuals who are trafficked because they aren't being cared for, right? Their dental, these things are not important to the trafficker, right? Can this person perform? So it doesn't matter if they have STDs or if they're sick, or it doesn't matter if they haven't had a dental checkup in 7 or 8 years. So I think we mentioned all of these, right? Drug addiction, anxiety. They're unfamiliar with their surroundings. They have no idea where they are, and they don't know the date. They should be in school and they're not going to school. They might have a scripted story,
but it may change. Like that story doesn't match every time. Like if you ask them again, maybe a different story. Some examples of some branding showing ownership. I think the barcode is a little bold on that, but it's incredible some of the branding that. Side story, a friend of mine had been trafficked in Oregon, and she sent me pictures. We didn't post those on this presentation, but some of the tattoos that she received, A, when she tried to run away first time, B, the time she tried to run away again. And these tattoos added to her body just to show, hey, I'm in charge.
Was that in your original presentation? Yeah. Oh, shoot.
Yeah, that's all right. No, it hurts to see it, but yeah, some of these are showing that ownership.
I think the crown is something significant as well. I saw a lot of crowns. And things are visible, right? They're on their neck. Some women had something on their face. This one girl had something tattooed on the inside of her lower lip. The barcode.
Yeah.
That is, this one said, you know, F you, pay me, or, oh no, I'll F you, pay me, with big dollar signs all over her chest. Ugh. Some of these are huge and elaborate.
Yeah, just showing that dominance.
Mm-hmm. This is a,
yeah.
Oh, sorry.
There was a question here.
Mm-hmm.
There's a question here in the chat about the burning, not just tattooing. So yeah, that branding, actually doing the brand. Is that what you're talking about, Susan? So yeah, they're talking about doing the branding where you heat up something and brand them. Yeah.
Just like a catalog.
Yeah, they definitely do that. So tattoo artists ever catching on, I'm sure they're not quality tattoo artists. And we will talk about when you're recovering as well, those folks that are surviving, doing tattoo removal is something we might get to at the end of this presentation. But yeah, how to turn that around. Like this tattoo is hideous. It reminds me of being trafficked. Yeah, exactly. So those tattoos are probably not being done at a quality tattoo shop. Catherine mentioned having the pimps probably doing the tattoos themselves, right? Your prison tattoos.
Yeah,
Well,
I mean, there were several girls that just had very rudimentary tattoos, and it was performed by their pimp with a needle and some India ink. I mean,
yeah, they are in a prison, correct? You know, you look at it that way. It may not be in a facility that is with concrete around it. They are in a prison.
again, this one might be a little too long, and we can play it at the end. Oh no, this one's actually, I think I'll let this one play.
Today, if you saw somebody chained to a post, you would do something about it. But in the days of the transatlantic slave trade, it was a normal sight to see. It isn't as clear today of what modern slavery looks like. But by knowing the signs of human trafficking, you can help protect yourself and you can help protect others. Traffickers would often brand their victims with tattoos using words such as daddy or cash. Trafficking victims may show sudden changes of dress and behavior. They may suddenly have possessions that they usually can't afford. They may have unusually long work hours. Victims may have new relationships with boyfriends or girlfriends that are noticeably older. And I'm not talking about a few years. Difficulty with making eye contact, especially with men. Victims may have untreated medical problems, such as cuts, bruises, burns, broken bones. They may miss school frequently, make frequent trips. Victims may be unable to speak independently. Other people may insist on answering questions for them, or even translating for them. Victims may even be frightened of authorities, seeing them as the bad guys. To request help or report possible human trafficking incidents, please call the National Human Trafficking Hotline, 1-888-3737-888, or text info or help at BeFree-233-733.
So, you know, some websites would say you have to start asking the victim questions, and you have to really try to get as much information as possible. But I think more websites were very clear about, you kind of have to be covert about this. You can't, especially if the trafficker is right there, you kind of have to be sneaky about gathering as much information as possible. And if you do suspect something, you're trying to remember all of these details, or maybe taking pictures without being spotted, right? Because this could be potentially dangerous for the person being trafficked.
Yeah, that video was very, very good. You guys you have some good videos in these, Carrie. I'm looking at these posts.
I know I was really bummed when some of your links weren't there anymore. It's really sad.
Yeah. Yeah, that be free, that text message setting be free. Those of you that mentioned the information in the bathroom stalls, you see a lot of that text be free. It seems to be a common thread no matter what bathroom stall you're in. That needs to be getting that help. And texting would be a very appropriate way to have them reach out.
And if by chance you do get the victim by the survivor by themselves, then these are just some questions that you might want to really quickly ask, right? Can you leave your job? Can you come and go as you please? Are you hurt? Do you feel threatened? Has your family been threatened? Do you live with your employer? Where do you sleep? Where do you eat? Are you indebted to your employer? And do you have your passport or identification? Who has it? And sometimes, again, this is all about speaking that person's language because they might not speak English. Understanding the mindset of the patient. They feel like, you know, it's a hopeless situation. Again, we're talking about somebody who's potentially being raped 10 to 20 times a day. So that would very much leave this sense of hopelessness and suicidal thoughts. And they definitely feel very isolated and potentially disoriented. They might not have any idea where they are.
Yeah, that brings up a good point. You know, they've been transported across state lines, country, you know, over borders, wherever they are. And you're right, they don't know where they're at. It's like, can you tell me where you're at right now, right? When we ask level of consciousness questions to a patient, like, can you tell me your name? And great. Can you tell me, you know, the president? Can you tell me where you are? Those kind of questions, they may not know where they're at.
Right. And if you think about somebody who's has maybe been trafficked since they were 10 years old, they might not even have that knowledge of
wow, yeah,
geography, or they haven't been going to school.
That's correct.
And there's so much fear. They are fearful of everyone, right? This is all they've known, right? So they're fearful of the trafficker, and now they are also kind of brainwashed and fearful of law enforcement. And they really don't think that anybody is going to help them.
And they're in dire straits there. Yeah, interesting thing in the chat here, Carrie. If they can't read street signs, they won't be able to figure out where they are. True, right? Especially if it's in a different language. Good point.
Exactly. So barriers to detection, I mean, the isolation is very, very apparent. They're most likely constantly being monitored. You know, they have somebody with them who is answering for them, who is potentially just kind of hanging on to them. So they might not be outwardly shackled, but they are definitely being held against their will.
Right. So how do you get them to yourself? Oh, there's the video. Okay.
You want me to go ahead and play?
No, you're doing just what I was saying. Like, how do you isolate your communication with them so you can ask these questions where the trafficker is not overhearing your conversation, where it's going to be really bad for them later on, the person being trafficked. But you had the video right there. Boom. You read my.
I am. We're together.
Like
so I don't think there's any sound to this. So it's just kind of a.
So this is, I'll paint you a picture unless it covers it here. This girl was being abused, being trafficked. She passes a note to the front desk and goes back to the area where they're waiting. It's at a veterinarian's office.
Yeah. So right now, I don't know if you saw that, but she's walking back. So just notice she's walking back And you're going to see him right here, peek his head out to see where she is. See? He peeked out to see where she was.
So of course he's going to take, so they pass that note to the front desk. The front desk goes, oh, wow, this is something we need to address. They call it contact local authorities. Local authorities show up and apprehend the trafficker. Now, how she didn't have a conversation with those front desk ladies. She simply passed a note, like, who knows what it said on that. But yeah, those moments of time, like, I need out of this horrible situation. That girl took advantage and passed that note. It was the only moment she was away from him.
Right, that wasn't even 1 minute.
Nope. So here's that opportunity. Yeah, just slides the note across. Looking at kiddos, easy targets for kiddos. Oh, you have some videos on this. Oh.
I mean, look, this is a relatively nice car on this guy, and he potentially had been watching her for several weeks, right? This might be a spot where she just typically goes after school, waiting for her mom or somebody to pick her up. And he just pulls up nonchalantly to nab her. This one is also. Oof. Mom left that kid alone. And this strange lady just walks up and picks him up. This one actually does have sound. This is not a video, this is just a picture, but this one, this little 10-year-old boy.
That house is there. I started walking home and there was two guys in the car.
Looking back,
They said hi, and then I started walking faster.
it seems surreal.
They said, get in the back seat, we have some candy.
Strangers in a white four-door sedan following Graydon's every step as he walked home.
They ran right here, I ran right there.
You can see tense moments caught on his family's doorbell camera. Staying vigilant, he watched their car.
And then I peeked my head out, and then they were they were literally like right in front of that little thing.
But when he tried to go in, locked.
I thought I was going to be kidnapped.
You can hear it in his voice. Panic.
I picked up rocks and I was holding them like this and I was going to throw them, but if they got me closer, I was going to throw them.
Graydon finally found safety inside of his neighbor's home.
The door was open, so I just ran in and I closed the door and I locked it.
But the creeps didn't leave, waiting for minutes in a neighbor's driveway.
It was very real.
In the aftermath, his entire family is on edge.
We've been here for 14 years. And to have it happen on your front doorstep, literally, it's an eye opener.
Emotionally, they're all a little traumatized by what happened.
He was scared to death.
But all they can do now is hope this doesn't happen to someone else.
Less than 200 feet. I mean, if kids can't walk 2 doors down at 6 o'clock at night, I mean, that's scary. Hopefully we can find them.
Graylon's parents have reported the incident to Riverton police. They say they're taking it very seriously.
Opportunistic.
I want you all to know that Carrie put a lot of work into getting these videos together, and I appreciate all the work that you put into this, Carrie. It's a lot to watch this stuff. I mean, to study it and put this together, but it is dismal. I can't even imagine being a law enforcement officer that has to look at these type of videos every day, right? You're just doing it for a CE, but imagining having to comb through these kind of videos and make prosecutions, it's got to be a challenge. So thank you to Carrie on that.
Right, I think I have some PTSD from doing this.
Yeah, it's tough. Yeah,
there were some tears for sure.
Oh, yeah.
So, and at the beginning, you mentioned that there was definitely, I mean, COVID-19, the pandemic definitely, it was another opportunity for trafficking to proliferate. And so there's this whole survey, right, of the effects of the pandemic on trafficking in persons and the response to those challenges. And you know, some of the biggest things were the economic impact that it had on people that maybe had gotten out and had to kind of slide back into that life because they were starving, right? They had no money. They had to sell their phones. They potentially had to sell their organs, right? Or they had to go back into a life of selling their body just to survive, because I guarantee that the sex trade did not stop, right? There was sheltering in place did not matter for people who needed that particular item. There was also a lot of capitalism on the traffickers' part. You know, a lot of things shifted for law enforcement, right? There was a complete shift to other things. There were other priorities for a lot of organizations, and even funding for trafficking. That was all diverted to the pandemic. And some traffickers took advantage of an opportunity to hide some of these things in the transportation of PPE, right? There was a lot of things and a lot of people that were hidden in transit of masks and gloves and personal protective equipment.
Yeah, some of that COVID effects that I've found on some of the research was taking the trafficking from the streets, or they called it something else, but taking those being trafficked off the streets and having them perform sexual acts online, you know, for payment that went to the pimp, right? So there's kind of a change of them being out on the street. Was something that I found that COVID had negative effects on trafficking being moved in a different way.
Mm-hmm. Well, and you know, so many school kids, you know, that no more in person or face-to-face classes, so they're just online all day long. And oh gosh, I can't remember the website now. But it might have been in one of, because I've taken a couple seminars from Ransomed Life, and one of the stories that was included in that presentation was online gaming. There was this instance where these 4 friends were doing this gaming online, and it was in a room where other people could join from wherever. And this girl joined their gaming group, and they all kind of became friends. And then the girl reached out to one boy and said, "I like you better than the others." And they kind of started texting outside of the group. And then she sent him a naked picture, and she wanted him to send her one, and it happened. And anyway, and it's like they decided to meet, and it turned out, you know, that they're meeting at this hotel. And of course, it wasn't a girl. It was a 45-year-old man who lured him there to have sex with another man. And when the boy is like panicking and freaking out and trying to leave, and he can't, and he's raped. And it turned out that the girl also reached out to all 4 of the friends, right? And tried to lure them away or lure them to him. And the girl was a real person who was also being trafficked. So he had naked pictures of her at his whim. And so it was this just vicious cycle of, so it's also in little portals like that, online gaming.
Yep, that's big. That VR gaming. Oh, here we go. So reporting those crimes, right? So you're like, I have suspicion that this person is being trafficked. There's a list of places that you can contact. Who would you call, right? Calling 911, sure. They're going to put you in touch maybe with somebody that can handle this kind of case. These are some other sites that you may have seen on those bathroom stalls. That blue campaign was the one I saw in Austin, Texas, for suspected trafficking. What else, Carrie?
Gosh, there are now just so many resources.
The same nurse I was speaking to about that case in Leadville, she's directed me to Shayla, the Shayla Freedom. Let me put it here. Freedom site, and they deal with recovery of those that have been trafficked, whether it has to do with learning, going back to school, or tattoo removal, or whatever that is going to, however that's going to get those folks that have been trafficked back into society in a way, so having self-worth, you know, whether it's mental health help or whatnot. This Shayla Freedom, I'll look up the actual website instead of just the name there. I don't remember if it's .com or .org, but they do a lot of transitioning those that have been trafficked back into society, for those that are going to not go back to the life, right?
Right. Yeah, that recovery is it's quite an extensive process.
See if I can find that.
And that one video mentioned the Catholic charities help them, but there are many other organizations. Is this it, Anne? The sexual assault nurse examiner saying?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Shayla Freedom, I probably spelled it wrong here, but talking about how they can get bringing light into the darkness of sex trafficking. What a beautiful motto. But they are a site that I highly recommend if you want to read deeper into sex trafficking and how to help some of those that are out there helping those that have been trafficked. These guys I can't recommend enough. Some of the social service providers that we have there on that list, you guys can read it. But yeah, those same nurses, some of the things they see, and then they have to relive that as do the trafficked, relive that at their the medical. Oh, she's having a heck of a time, but you know, relive that event if they are going to try to make an arrest on those traffickers.
You know, something else that I think that we've seen a shift in is the arrest. There's a shift in law enforcement, you know, picking these underage girls up off the street, and instead of giving them a criminal record, they identify that this person is a victim, right? This person is being coerced into doing this. Well, this is their opportunity to rescue them, right? To arrest them for prostitution is kind of a rescue attempt to get them away from their trafficker. So it's not so much giving this person a criminal record for prostitution.
So January 11th, National Human Trafficking Awareness Day. Just a day that helps bring that to light to those that do not know that trafficking is right here in our backyard. Not our backyard, but I have deer in the backyard. But if we, you know, just being aware of that, how vast it is across the United States.
Exactly.
Prosecution of the traffickers. Thank you, Carolyn. Or Catherine, sorry.
So this is just some of that reading that I was talking about, just some really, really amazing books. I also did find this is kind of historical fiction here, the Sold by Patricia McCormick. And she's such a great writer. So some really, really great books. Disposable People was really good. All right, so I'm going to open it up for questions. I know we only have 5 minutes, but it's such a heavy topic. And sorry to set the mood for the rest of your day. And I will send that document. I do have it saved to my documents. So I can send that to everybody, or I can post it along with this presentation, the recording. And we'll go from there. So I'm just gonna open it up. I'm gonna mute.
I would wonder how many of the abused think that it's normal. Like, and they they see all these signs and symptoms and like, oh, they're like, yes, that's me, and yes, that's me. But then they're like, well, wait a minute, this is just my life. Like, this has been normal since I was 12. So what do you mean this is wrong?
That's exactly it. They're starting so young that they don't really know anything else, sadly.
Much like victims or survivors of domestic violence, if they don't know any different, they think that's normal as well. So it's sad because sometimes they see it generationally going on in the family, and they don't know that there's any other way to live.
We had a question here as far as, do you know what are some of the best companies to donate to help stop it, to stop the abuse? That Shayla Freedom is what I posted earlier in the chat. They have you have the ability, if you do Amazon, who doesn't order online, but Amazon Smile, you can select an agency to donate portion of your purchase. Donating money to those kind of industries. That Shayla Freedom is one I would suggest.
I think that would probably make the biggest impact right here. That is a good question. Maybe I'll do some more research on that.
Yeah, Rebecca posted, once a person has been accustomed to this, it becomes part of their life. Absolutely. Yeah, they were brought up. I mean, there's still a kid oftentimes. They're brought up to believe this is my life. It may take somebody like yourself to step in and go, these signs are odd. You stepping in, you kind of wedging in there, getting the help for those folks might be that thing that changes their life.
I actually wanted to say something. I've had a couple experiences that, well, just recently I was in Mexico, and just thinking about the culture and how like those little kids are out there at, like, me and my husband were talking about this at like 10 or 11 at night, and they're selling stuff.
Yeah.
And they should be at home sleeping and not worrying about that. And it's kind of like not really necessarily an option for them. It's like a requirement from their family. And then when I was in Vegas, I had rode a bus, and I was at the Greyhound bus station. I think I was 14 or 15. And I remember I was like, I want to go for a walk real quick. Well, I had no idea what to expect. And a group full of guys like pulled up and stopped near me and was like, ooh, how old are you? And I like got really scared and got this bad feeling. And I was just like, I pretty much booked it back to the bus station, because I think that either they were thinking prostitution or, because I was all by myself, nobody else was around. So that was pretty crazy too. But I was like, so it's definitely out there more than we realize.
Mm-hmm. So innocent, right? And naive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I was like, oh, they're flirting with me. But then I was like, oh my God, these guys could really hurt me.
Mm-hmm.
And like just snatch me up and nobody would even know. So But I was thankful that I booked it back to the bus station. I was like, I'm not going back outside.
Well, Anne sent me this video and it was this little girl buying ice cream and there was a car parked there and the door was open, the back door was open. And there was a guy like pretending to talk on the phone, not that far away. And the little girl's getting ready to leave. And luckily the woman selling ice cream like ran up beside her and kind of shielded her. She was between the little girl in the car and this guy. Otherwise that guy, he was waiting for her to just shove her in his car and drive away.
Wow.
Again, opportunistic.
Like vultures waiting.
That's a great word.
Yeah. Well, thank you for the class.
Thank you. I thank you. It's always so great to see you and have you all here and to give you this information. And I hope that it does stimulate you to do a little bit more research and to look for these things. I mean, you are sometimes the first line of exposure for some of these people. So
and like you said, they are watching over. They are not just jumping suddenly. They are watching a while. Maybe I said it, maybe not before, but a couple years ago, my mom was here with us, and she realized, my mom is deaf, but she realized that a person, male, was, and we live on the cul-de-sac next to the high school gate, so it's pretty much nobody comes in this area. It's just a small trail next to us. But my mom realized that a couple times a day, a gentleman was just walking in front of our house, and we live at a townhome, which is next neighbors, walking back and forth and looking inside. And she said that for a week at least that she realized somebody, and was any time of the day, morning, afternoon, and night. And in the evening was dark outside. My mom told me, just go outside very quick and look at that person. That is the one that is walking back and forth. By the time I went out, I couldn't see anybody. So let's say a couple weeks after she told me that, I was at work, 10 o'clock in the morning. She was attacked by somebody in the house. She was facing the sink. She couldn't see anybody. She said that she had gloves, face was covered. She couldn't see if it was white or black, couldn't tell anything, was telling something, was pushing on her, was grabbing her neck from the back, but she couldn't tell what was saying, what he wanted. And she was just screaming, deaf, 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 until that person ran away because the trash truck came and heard the noise and left out. Nobody saw anything. And when I talked with across the street neighbors, they said, I was just playing a couple minutes before with my kids outside, right before that one. So they are watching and watching. So now we have camera in the front and in the back, but my mom was shocked, probably even now, because we don't know what that person wanted.
Jeez, gosh.
Yeah, and we don't know if he wanted, now saying about trafficking, having 4 girls, I'm panicking. So.
We've got a couple other things in the chat here. Yeah, Carrie and I were here to bum you out for the day. Go outside, take some sunshine on your skin and some breaths for sure.
But also watch everything that's happening too.
I know, but we don't want you terrified of life, right?
It is
observant.
My girls are using pepper spray each time they walk all the time, just for something. And I told them, in case of something, protection, grab your key between the fingers and just scratch it.
Perfect.
In case of something, but yeah, it's.
And Carrie, there's a question as far as, will this presentation be posted somewhere where they can refer back to it?
Yes. So I have a YouTube channel, so I will post it to the YouTube channel and I'll send everybody the link.
Thank you.
Okay.
And then Carrie, I actually, I think I need to redo a couple classes that you've given me credit for. So I'm not sure when I should do those, like just tell you when or?
Yep, I'll send you the link to those as well.
Okay.
That's
It was
all
the
I'm
one, the two in March, the one last year, because my dad was passing. And then I think it was this one, the March one that I missed.
Yep, I'll send you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. All right, everybody have a great day.
You
Thank
too.
you.
Bye.
Bye.